I no longer need hardcore proof to validate what my intuition tells me. If something feels off about a person, place, or thing, it's because something is off. I'm not sticking around to discover what it is. My time and my energy are way too valuable. And that was posted on Instagram by Positive Thoughts Vibe. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Toy Talks podcast. My name is, of course, Toy Washington, and bi-weekly I aspire to produce a brand new episode for you all. I really want to thank everybody for all their love and their support on the last episode, and also on the vlogs as well, and YouTube, TikTok, and all my social media outlets that I use. You guys are just so supportive, and I feel very, very blessed. And all the new listeners that have found Toya Talks, albeit through social media or by recommendation, welcome, and I appreciate you all for listening. Please acquaint yourself with previous episodes, because if you have some burning questions, it's usually been covered in previous episodes. Just look at the show notes for in-depth detail about what is covered in each podcast episode. This episode is called 50. And we are also going to have a dilemma in this episode. And I call it a dilemma, but it's not necessarily, it came through as a dilemma, but it's not a dilemma. It's more of someone sharing their experience about something because they feel like somebody else could learn from it. And then I'm just going to give my thoughts on the dilemma, what we're calling a dilemma or a life lesson, which I think is really important to be shared here on the podcast. But before we get into that, I've named this episode 50. And the reason is it came from a conversation that was had this weekend. My sister-in-law had come down to meet the new baby, and we all got talking. We always have quite deep conversations, myself, her brother, who is my husband, Kay, and myself, and we had many conversations this weekend. But there was a particular conversation that arose about 50 Cent, and I preface this episode and the conversation at the time by saying that I don't look up to a lot of people. I really do not look up to a lot of people. It takes a lot for me to look up to somebody, because I feel as though sometimes when we look up to people, we conflate that with idolizing, and we often put people on pedestals. And the problem with putting someone in a pedestal is it's a heavy weight to carry, and I think it's heavy is the crown. And sometimes I feel like we don't allow people to be human beings and make mistakes because we put them on this pedestal. Whereas someone like 50 Cent, who I look up to so much, isn't somebody I put on a pedestal, because he is as real as they come, and he will appear, flaws and all, and he will also apologize. And I feel like he is so authentically himself. His honesty becomes offensive to people who don't understand his character. And for me, I just kind of really vibe with him. I think I'd mentioned 50 Cent before in a previous episode, but I don't think I've ever actually dedicated a podcast episode to him. And it's not often that I do these type of episodes. I think I've done one on Michael Jordan, who is another person I really look up to. Of course, 50 Cent, and I think there's like two other people who in the future I do podcast episodes about. I have previously spoken about 50 Cent's book, and the book that he released is called Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. And it's a book I've heard twice already on Audible. It's a book I'm going to listen to again and again and again throughout my life, because I find 50 Cent to be remarkable in how he processes all his life experiences, and how he then, takes all the learning lessons and lives his life, and how now he has become a media mogul in his own right. So he started off as in music. Well, he'll tell you actually he started off as a drug dealer, is how he would say. But he also, they talk about drug dealers having the most being the most business minded. And if you've watched The Wire, you would understand why people would say stuff like that. 50 Cent has gone from that to music, and then he has reinvented himself as a businessman in his own right. He has an alcohol brand that I know that he has invested in, developed, but he's also really well known for a lot of the programs that he has put out. And I have got this picture, and I'm actually going to post it on my Instagram page, which is Toya_Washington, and it has some of the series that he's come out with. So BMF, Power Book 2, Power Book 1, Ghost, and I'm sure I'm missing. Oh, Raising Canaan. So he has produced Raising Canaan, Power Book 2, Power Book 1, Ghost, and BMF. And I'm telling you right now, I haven't gotten into BMF. Kay really loves BMF. I haven't gotten into Raising Canaan just because I don't know, I'm not really drawn to it. But who knows, like as my maternity period progresses and I need more shows to watch, I might actually go back and watch those shows. But I'm a massive fan of Power Book 1, Power Book 2, and Ghost. And I think that 50 Cent has used every experience he has to make it into something positive. And the positivity is being able to depict his experiences through series, through drama. And it's actually really amazing to see a black man being able to create these series and work with subject matter experts like writers, like all these actors, and really push the culture in the way he does. And I think what is also quite amazing is his ability to tell stories through these characters. And when you look at these characters, they were made for the characters that they portray and play. And 50 Cent is involved in handpicking these actors. And you can tell because the scripts almost feel like they're written for them. Now, when it comes to 50 Cent as a person, obviously none of us know him as a person, but his social media persona is somebody who is very matter of fact, quite sarcastic, straight to the point. He does rub people up the wrong way. But I'm gonna put it like this. I think 50 Cent is unapologetically himself. And I feel like in society, when you are yourself, society has an issue with that. And they try to tear you down. They try to make you feel like you're not good enough. And 50%, I was about to call him 50%, but 50 Cent just focuses on what he's saying. He's very articulate and he's very single-minded, and I respect it. I think there was a quote actually by Ebo Daddy on Twitter, and he says, they say that 50 Cent is creating the Marvel universe for drug dealers. And what he's trying to say is all these episodes and these series center drug dealers and seeing them as businessmen and things like that. And he's not necessarily trying to change a narrative, no. He's basically going to the core and the essence of what happens on the streets and how it actually then manifests itself in, say, the corporate world or within business in itself. And I think I think what really has drawn me to 50 Cent also is when he was, you see, I think 50 Cent spent a lot of time trying to legitimize himself because people always just saw him as this, you know, pumped, gym obsessed rapper. And I was never a fan of 50 Cent as a rapper at all. But what I've become a fan of is how he has transformed himself into a businessman. And for those of you who do not know, Ghost was the first of his catalogue of series that he came out with, and Ghost was amazing. I feel like my absolute number one show of all time is The Wire. And those who know. And I feel like Wire was the backdrop for 50 Cent to come out of all these series. But he was working with a company called Stars, and Stars basically are the company that put out, you know, his programs, and they have it on their platform. And 50 Cent was really vocal about, you know, when it became successful, really popular, he became very vocal about how he was being mistreated by Stars. In fact, he went on record to say, and I'm not quoting him verbatim here, but he basically saw, you know, Ghost Power. How he saw Power. Sorry, Ghost is one of the characters. That's why I keep saying Ghost, because Ghost I think could have had his own series of his own, but sorry, my baby brain is, I have to, you know what, I need to preface every episode by telling people about my baby brain, and we're going to get into that a bit later, very briefly, because it is real, and I spoke about it on my Instagram page, but I definitely feel I need to speak about it again. So yeah, anyway, so stars. And basically, stars wanted to use power as a bridge to other programs they had from other producers or people to legitimize stars. Because up until 50 Cent, I don't know about you guys, but I'd never heard of stars before. And they didn't necessarily want to invest in pushing power. And we know this because when the contract was up and it was time to renew or talk about renewing, what they were coming to the table with 50 Cent was bad vibes. It was low vibrations. And I need to talk about low vibration money in terms of work and the world of work as well. But it was low vibrations. And he was like, no. He knew what his worth was because he did not need stars to legitimize power. Actually, what legitimized it was the response from the audience wanting another season, the buzz on social media, and the quality of the actors that he had in the show. Long story short, he did renew with them, but he maintained his position, and ultimately it all boils down to money. I mean, we've seen it with Adidas and Kanye West. It all boils down to money, and they knew that if they had allowed 50 Cent to walk, they would lose a lot of revenue that was coming through from the viewership. And I think, you see, the problem with a lot of these big businesses, and I'm gonna say this as well in the world of work, is when they see black people, they underestimate us so much that they depend on us to not know our value. And then what they do is when they depend on us to not know our value and we approach them not knowing our value, they use that to their advantage, to take advantage, and to rob us of our ability to either be successful, to realise our value, or to get what we deserve. And stars tried to do this with 50 Cent. After renewing a second time, 50 Cent was like, you know what, since you do not believe in my shows, you do not believe in me, you're not pushing, you know, you basically have an agenda for your station, your program network, or whatever network, that's probably the better word. You have a view of what you want to do for a network. You and I don't align, so I'm gonna go and find another network. He's now 50 Cent is now working with Lionsgate, so I basically cancelled my Stars subscription because, again, Stars make money from the subscription as well. So I'm like, why have I got Stars? They had other programs on there, but to be honest with you, I wasn't. There's one with Florence Whitaker. There's one show with Florence Whitaker on Stars, and once I finished watching that, I was done. And now I've subscribed to Lionsgate just to watch Power. And now Power Book 2, I think it's Power Book 2 with Tommy, has got a second season. All his franchises got a second season, and second, third, fourth seasons, and they are progressing on to further seasons. And it's testament to the fact that 50 Cent knows his worth, and he wasn't willing to compromise it just to remain on a network that everybody was familiar with seeing his creativity on. And he wasn't afraid to walk away and say, well, I'll go find another opportunity or another network that's going to recognise my the power of my brand, and also respect what I've brought to the table. Because I think ultimately 50 Cent talks about respect, and he talks about the fact that a lot of the difficulties that he's found in the media industry is gaining that respect because they have a preconceived idea of who he is and what he is, rather than just seeing him as a businessman. And I put it to you to also look at it in the world of work. You know, I have been in many conversations, I've had many meetings and interviews and many a negotiation where an organisation is literally, number one, almost offended that I want to negotiate anything, and then surprised when they realise that I also recognise my value. And then when it comes to, say, talking about bonuses, objectives, or even negotiating on an offer, the way the attitude is almost like they're doing us a favour. And I've told you all time and time again, when it comes to value, you should know what your value is or what your potential is. An organisation has a need and it has a requirement, and they're looking for the best in class of somebody who is able to deliver. There is a mutual requirement from both parties. Now, I've spent so many years on my career. Like, when I really allow myself to really think about the time, money that I've invested in becoming a subject matter expert, you can't come and talk to me about a job that is less than half of what I would expect as a minimum. I got a question from someone on Snapchat, and they basically said, from using the platform and really understanding some of the key themes in my podcast episodes, and I think they purchased a previous masterclass, but they fully understood about how to negotiate through my platform. They were able to negotiate a salary increase, and now she was asking me if she is also allowed to negotiate the notice period, which they require is 3 months, and she thinks it's a bit excessive. I think that she is able to negotiate it, and she's scared they're going to rescind the offer. And I said to her, excuse me, can I ask you a question? She said, yeah. I said, number one, what is the worst thing they can say to you? The worst thing they can say is, no, it has to be 3 months. But number two, why do you feel like, because you want to negotiate a better term or a better situation, that you're going to be punished by them rescinding a job? And if they rescind a job offer, would you want to work for them anyway? Why would you want to work for somebody where asking a question creates such offence that they'd rather take back an offer? Why would you want to work for or with somebody like that? And this boils down to us knowing what our value is. Like, in any negotiation, there's always going to be a risk. Always. And I say this in my negotiation masterclass on the toytalks.com website. I say it all the time. Negotiation is a risk. And the risk is, I say red, amber, green, if you want to rag or rate the risk. But I also have a walk away point. And I have a walk away point, and I talk about this in the negotiation masterclass, is because I have my dignity and the essence and strength of my self-esteem and the fact that I'm bloody good at my job. These are the reasons why I'm willing to walk away if you do not recognise the value I bring and we cannot find a middle ground of compromise. I'm willing to walk away. And I know what that walk away point is. And it could be that on a salary, like a minimum amount I'm willing to accept, and you're not willing to meet me there. Well, that minimum amount is made up of whatever the markets say in the industry, my skill set, where I've come from, what I can live on, plus what I deserve, plus what I know I should be getting. So if I'm not getting the minimum, I will walk away. I know that if for example, my notice period, and I require for this particular job my notice period to be 2 months mutual notice, but you're not budging, but I know that this is a deal breaker, I will walk away. And I implore you to understand and recognise what your deal breakers were. 50 Cent knows where his deal breakers are, and he knows where his walk away point is. And when the negotiation for money, and I'm sure how long they wanted to lock him into a contract, when he realised that they weren't negotiating, he had a walk away point, because those key things were his deal breakers, and he walked away. And he's walked away to a better network that is more known, for more money and a better package. You have to be able to understand what you are worth first before looking for your worth in an organisation or an employer. And I've said this before in the masterclass. I think I've said it several times in previous episodes, and I'm going to say it now. No business, organisation, manager, employer will ever pay you what you're worth, because your skill set is unquantifiable. But what they can do is give you what is reasonable, acceptable, justifiable, and also what they can give you is what you need. And if you have that in mind and recognise you are a subject matter expert, or on the way to be a subject matter expert, then you should be confident in yourself to be able to open negotiations on anything. And I said to this young lady, you can negotiate anything. Salary, contract terms, termination clause, garden leave clause, NDAs. You can negotiate anything in a contract. It's about what holds value to you. You can negotiate every single clause if that's what you want to do, but you have to use the common sense approach on how you approach it. Then, especially when it comes to salary, there has to be I don't know what the word is, but there has to be something that backs up your wanting to negotiate, if that makes sense. So when it's negotiating salary, it's more about looking on the market and stuff like that. And I go into a lot of detail, and I give a lot of detail in the negotiation masterclass about how to arrive at a figure too, because the one you have in your head and the one the market has might be different. You may have a lower figure than what the market says that you should be getting for your level, and vice versa. And I think 50 Cent is what I would define as a business boss. He's a mogul. And I believe what Kay said when we all had that conversation in the house, that 50 Cent is on his way to be a billionaire. He's now looking at buying TV studios, a bit like I can't remember, Tyler Perry, my memory, a bit like Tyler Perry. He wants to get his own studio, and I definitely see why he's doing that, because it's another revenue stream, but also it's an opportunity for him to take charge of his business even more by being able to bring things in-house. And he's expanding his repertoire, he's expanding his knowledge, he's expanding his ability to legitimize himself as a businessman, which he is. But I think it's for 50 Cent, he's always feeling that he's having to legitimize himself, because it's like, for example, Power did really well. Oh, is it a one-hit wonder? Then he did Power Book 2. Oh, is it? You understand? I feel like he's always... And he doesn't mind, because I think 50 Cent sees it as a challenge. And he is smashing all those challenges, and he's doing amazing. He also released another series about this guy. It was based on a true story about this guy that was wrongfully imprisoned, and then trains and becomes a lawyer, and then beats his case, and then starts representing other people. I can't remember what it's called, but if you just type in 50 Cent, I'm sure all the things that he's produced comes up. But I think that's just testament to the fact that 50 Cent doesn't just do a series about drug dealer businessmen. He does stuff that are quite conscious and quite important to the culture, and I think everything he does is quite important to the culture, but he's able to show he's a diverse producer, if that makes sense. He's very diverse in what he does. And ultimately, it does boil down to money when it comes to these networks. I think what happened with Kanye West and Adidas, to be honest, if we're studying things about business ethics and stuff like that, you can't talk about those topics without talking about Kanye West and Adidas. Adidas released their final, what they're claiming to be their final Adidas drop, and it's because obviously with everything that happened with Kanye West, Adidas, they denounced his Kanye West behavior and also terminated working with him. But what they failed to also elaborate on is, before Kanye West kind of went into his deplorable behavior, Kanye West was having problems with Adidas anyway. And rumor has it, allegedly, that Kanye West deliberately frustrated his contract with Adidas to get out of his contract. And ultimately, he got out of his contract. But the issue now became that Adidas made billions of dollars from their collaboration with Kanye West. They tried to tell us that they were going to basically recreate Kanye West stuff. They had the prototypes, all of this shit. But what they realized is Kanye West is Kanye West, and Yeezy is authentically Yeezy. We're not wanting to buy knockoffs. We want the actual thing. They entered into negotiation with Kanye West to agree a deal to get rid of all the Adidas, the Yeezy trainers that they had, Yeezy footwear that they had in their warehouses. And they would release a drop. It would be like one of the biggest drops they've done. Release that and basically sell all the footwear in the warehouse. And obviously, Kanye West would get favourable terms and make money off that. And that's exactly what Adidas did. So of all Adidas's hoopla, they ended up still collaborating with Kanye West anyway, because what it boils down to is money. It's money. I have a podcast episode saying where there's a cost code, where there's a budget, there's a cost code. Sorry, where there's a cost code, there's a budget. Everything boils down to money at the end of the day. And it's a sad state of affairs whereby Adidas had to literally come crawling back to Kanye West. Quite rightly so in a way, because they tried to basically shiest him out of his deal, which I think was disgusting, to be quite honest. And then tried to use the prototypes to say, we own this, we own that. When actually, Kanye West owns Yeezys. It doesn't matter how you cut it. Kanye West owns Yeezys, and I've got a couple of drops in addition to what I have already. And they also let go of their collaboration with Beyonce. Ivy Park because it wasn't doing very well. And to be honest, I don't know Beyonce is a fashionista. Beehive, sit down and behave yourself. Let's be honest. How many times did you see Beyonce in her own fashions? How many times? Whereas Kanye West lives and breathes his fashions. Like, Yeezy will go down in history, I believe, as one of Adidas's greatest business deals and greatest collaborations. And that's on period. And now the resale value on most of those trainers are astronomical. I've got a pair of limited edition trainers in acid yellow. Adidas 350s V2s, I think. No, I don't even know if they're V2s are they? I can't remember. And I paid like £100 pounds. Everyone's like, oh, they're horrible, they're horrible. You see them now, everyone is literally salivating over them. I paid 100 and what, maybe 160, 180 max for them from the Yeezy drop. They're now worth between £500 to £800. I mean, the power that Kanye West yields is unbelievable. But in fashion, the man is untouched, unmatched. He is a businessman. And whilst I don't agree with Kanye West's behaviour, his racial hatred, and the things that he has said, which have been harmful to so many communities, including the black community, what cannot be ignored is his business prowess. And the fact that he gave some of his shares to Kim Kardashian will forever, ever perplex my mind. Because Homegirl was laughing all the way to the bank and she didn't have to do nothing. Goddamn. I say all of this and deliver this episode, and I hope you're understanding that some organisations are just low vibrations, and some of the things that they offer you are low vibrations. You cannot offer somebody below market average of what they should expect given their experience and or their qualifications. Not having enough experience is not the reason why you should take a salary that is ridiculous, or this subservient attitude that we have as default, and then we're given something that is lower than what we can live on, but we accept it anyway. I've been in that position before. I lasted 3 months, I had to go back on benefits. I was in my early 20s. It wasn't a great position to be in. When I recognised what my value was and I recognised what I bring to the table, and yes, you know, in my early 20s, I was still gathering experience. I still had the confidence to be able to apply for the job, get an interview, get the job and deliver. Therefore, if you're going to offer me a job, you must see my potential too. Let's start from there. When you start looking at it like that, you get a bit more confident in being able to approach what you think are difficult conversations. But for organisations, they do expect you to an extent to have a conversation about whatever offer they're offering you. And those conversations, if they have to be negotiations, then that's how it has to be. And this is why I say to you, even when you're on probation, you should still be looking for roles, or looking at roles, looking at the market and doing interviews. At the end of the day, you don't owe anything to anybody other than yourself. And your career is yours. You are the architect of your career, nobody else. So let me quickly read this email that I received, obviously anonymously, and it's called Financial Abuse. Hi Toya, I would like to remain anonymous. Here is my situation. I was a former university student and I moved out of my hometown at an early age, where I moved to a university town where I had no family and friends in the city. It was completely new to me. I settled in well and loved my university, made some friends, etc. However, when I was 20, I met a guy that I initially didn't have any interest in, but it spiraled into something else. I feel as though I was used or even possibly groomed. I became really good friends with this person. We spoke every day, met each other, and I'd see him around all the time due to being in a small city. As we became closer, he would slowly drop in that his life was going bad and he fell into the wrong crowd, needed help. He made it very believable, stating he was alone in the country and moved here with hardly any family at the age of 10. Knowing that I was more financially better than him, my family are well off, he asked me for money. I have never been the type of person to lend anyone money, which was my mistake. The first time it wasn't a lot at all, and I wasn't scared to lose it. Time went on and it turned into him asking me for more and more favours, which led to me breaking contact with him completely as I let him know he was using me at this point. This is where he tried everything in his power to come back. manipulated and gaslighted me, stating that he couldn't control, that he was poor, and that he was not after my money or any favours this time. He kept his word for a while until he showed up at my apartment crying and hysterical, saying that he owed someone £3,000. At this point in time, I could not afford to lend anyone money. I made it very clear to him, and he continued to physically cry and break down in front of me. I kept refusing and saying I couldn't even give him better I kept refusing, saying I couldn't even give him better ideas on how to pay this person back. I don't understand what that meant. He continued to pressure me, and I stupidly gave it to him, as in the £3,000. I made him sign a contract, and it stated that if he didn't pay me back by the agreed date, I would take him to the police or his family or friends. I have his address. The date came and the excuses started rolling in. He kept lying and giving false dates and promises. It drove me mad because I was a uni student. I didn't have money at that time. I attempted to involve his family before the police, and he threatened me, emotionally tormented me, and verbally abused me after all I had done for him. He told me that he wished he never met me and doesn't want to associate with a girl like me. I was scared and very emotionally distraught. I lost weight. I couldn't sleep, eat. I was depressed and ill. I didn't go out anywhere for months. I had nightmares, panic attacks, and I was the skinniest I'd ever been. I lost my relationship with my family over this, as they found out, and he didn't care. I was tormented by my own mum about this all the time, stating that I have no value and I'm unwanted. He continued to post and flaunt his lavish lifestyle, all while telling me he was depressed and would kill himself if I did something. I started being bullied by his friends, being called the girl that got robbed, a black bitch. He made them all laugh at me, etc. He sold the gift I got him to his friends. I felt so betrayed, embarrassed and alone. I've never been that depressed in my life. I had to leave the city and drop out of uni. I was alone completely. I thought everything was entirely my fault, and I was even wrong for making a scene of it. A few months later, he got in touch apologising, and I told him to even keep all the money he owed me, although I was still being harassed and bullied by those who knew. Now I've rekindled relationships with my family and I have a new job. I'm happy again and in a much better position, but it never seems to leave my mind. I did for him what no one would do, but I was humiliated, embarrassed, alone and harassed. I found out he was married, much older than me, and lied about his age in between too. It honestly still feels like he put a knife in my heart and left it there. It feels like God or whoever will never account for the pain I went through. I was never ever cruel or rude to this person, and I was always nice because it's in my nature. It's difficult, but life goes on. Please keep me anonymous. So the reason I've read that is because, number one, I just want to commend the courage it takes to be able to put pen to paper or just be able to write down your experiences and be as transparent as you have done. Financial abuse is real, grooming is real, and manipulation is real. And I think in being able to share this, I hope that you are able to understand why this young lady needs to share this, because it's important that we are open about certain experiences to also find healing. And when people share, we learn from their experiences. I do want to say to this young lady that whilst I commend you on your strength and your ability to be very transparent and frank about your experiences, I do think that you should maybe have a therapy session. And I say this because of what you said towards the end, where you said it still feels so painful and like somebody stabbed you in the heart and left the knife there. And that's quite a descriptive way to describe what's happened. And it also tells me that the wound is still very fresh, as it should be. You're entitled to feel how you feel. But I think that it's really hard when we look back, when we were younger, and certain decisions and choices we made. And when you get through it, being able to look back and still feeling that pain, because that younger you is still feeling that raw pain. And maybe by you moving on and not actually dealing with that situation in your mind or working through it in your mind, what you've done is you've kind of papered over the cracks. And that's what we do sometimes in life. To be able to move on, sometimes we just, paper over the cracks. But the problem is, if something triggers you, or maybe you enter a new relationship and something triggers you, it may trigger those emotions that you felt from that past situation. And this is why I always encourage therapy, to be able to walk and work through those emotions, and also anything that has changed you fundamentally as a person. I always recommend therapy. It also reminds me and triggered me when I read this, because I remember when I was in my 20s and I was dating somebody, and he's the reason why I tell everybody that I always said I'd never marry an Igbo guy. And it's not because I'm generalizing, it's because I was so profoundly hurt in that particular relationship, and I was so vulnerable and so young that it scarred me. And a lot of how I was treated came from my culture, and a misinterpretation, I believe, of my culture. And this particular person knew I lived on my own. He didn't. He was a lot older than me, and he'd come to my house and he just refused to leave. Sometimes he tormented me, and he tried to bully me because he was well known within the community and I wasn't. And there was a point where he made it clear to people that he was dating me, and then made it clear when he wasn't. But then it was almost like he tried to piss all over me so nobody else would be interested in me. And then when I did start dating another Igbo guy, I'll never forget, there was like an event, and literally this guy was literally everywhere I was, he was there. And the person I was dating saw it as well, and he would call me. Sometimes he'd call me on a withheld number. I'd just hear breathing. It was a lot. And I wish I had done therapy, and this is why I'm saying it, because I'm hoping that you can be better than me. I wish I'd done therapy at the time, because it really affected me. When you make grandiose statements like I'm never going to XYZ, it's showing you the significance of how that situation has affected you and continues to. And I had no business leaving home at 21 anyway. And I've discussed that previously in previous episodes, and much of it was because I was raised by a narcissistic mother, so living in the same house as her was hell, and I would rather have lived outside than the hell that I was living. But that could have become a very dangerous situation very quickly, and it's the mercy of God and the ancestors that it didn't. And I'm really glad for the relationship I had with my dad, because when things got really uncomfortable, I did speak to my dad about it, and he was like, no, this isn't right, and really kind of giving me the confidence to know that my feelings were legitimate. But I wish I'd taken it a step further. Therapy now is a lot more spoken about, a lot more encouraged. Back then it wasn't. So the ability to be able to get therapy wasn't there, and financially I wasn't in a position to get that therapy. So if you are able to, I would recommend therapy to the young lady that wrote in. And it's important that I shared what she'd written in, because I think it's important for us to know that financial abuse exists, and being able to stand up and walk away and say, no, this is not what I'm going to tolerate, takes an amazing amount of strength that needs to be recognised, acknowledged and supported. I also want to thank you all for the video that has gone viral on TikTok, and it's the one where I speak about it's a video where I just talk about some of the things that had happened leading up to me becoming pregnant. A lot of people basically telling me that my eggs were finished, and I've left it too late at my age. Will I get married? Who wants to marry me? I can't have kids. The medical condition of fibroids, PCOS and underactive thyroid that would have lent itself to being incapable or unable, or having difficulty to be able to conceive, and actually being able to conceive quite quickly. And also making sure that I had certain things in place to facilitate my ability to want to become a mother. So, breaking generational curses, going to therapy, doing the work, creating a financial position for me to be able to have a child, and being able to cultivate a career, which I focused on first. And that video has gone viral, and it's me kind of, have like a bit of a testimony and just rejoicing in dance. about where I've come from, where I was and where I am now. And you guys have literally made that video viral. And I did not record that video thinking for 1 second it would go viral. But being able to see the comments and how comforted people are by my testimony, by that video, and people, you know, feeling re-energized in their pursuit of understanding their PCOS or endometriosis or whatever the medical condition, just being able to get in front of it or at least understand what's going on with their body. And if that video has encouraged you to do that, then I'm so grateful to God to have been able to facilitate that through testimony. So I just want to thank you all for making that video viral. It continues to go viral. It's crazy. And blogs have picked it up. I've been getting a lot of interview requests, but you guys know what I'm like. I'm not that person. I'm not, yeah. I feel like the testimony is there, and I will continue to speak my truth and testify of the ancestors and the grace of God and the mercy of the ancestors as I progress through life. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, and hopefully you have enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you've benefited from this episode. I know it's a bit of a short episode, but I really wanted to record this episode. There's a few episodes I have in the works that are going to come out, which I know that you all are going to also enjoy as well. But I wanted us to dig deep into our inner 50, and hopefully this episode will encourage you to really put yourself first and not be afraid to know your worth, access your worth, and assert your worth. If you want to follow me on social media, my Instagram handle is, oh God, hang on, before I get into that, baby brain. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to have another separate episode about baby brain. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Separate episode. We're going to do that. If you want to follow me on social media, my Instagram page is Toya_Washington. The Toya Talks podcast Instagram page is Toya_Talks. If you would like to follow me on Snapchat, my handle is Toya Washington, which is all one word. And of course, I am on TikTok. My handle is Toya Washington. If you want to send through an anonymous dilemma, and your details will be anonymous, you can email hello@toytalks.com. And it's a work or life related dilemma. We will discuss it here, and your anonymity will remain protected. If you're interested in any of the masterclasses, please go ahead and access the website toytalks.com. That's www.toytalks.com. Make sure you like this episode if you're able to on Spotify, because you're able to also rate and leave comments and stuff on Spotify, so go ahead and do that. Whatever platform you listen to this podcast on, please share it with anyone who you think can benefit or who needs to hear the episode. Go ahead and reacquaint yourself with the previous episodes. If you're new to this platform, make sure you go ahead and listen to some of the previous episodes, look at the show notes, and make sure that you're able to access the information, because all the information remains on the Toy Talks podcast platform and on my website. If you want to follow me on Twitter, my handle is Toya_W. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to thank each and every one of you for listening, for supporting. Also as well, if you want to follow my YouTube channel, it is At Home with Toya, where I vlog and upload bi-weekly. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to thank you so much for all your love and support. Wishing you a blessed week, a blessed month, a blessed rest of the year. And I'll catch you all in my next episode, which will be a brand new episode of the Toy Talks podcast. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toy Talks podcast.